Hi, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. Jeanne White is the producer and writes the blog, and I suggest you read the blog. You're going to want to stay tuned, folks, because I have a very special guest on. I met this young lady 2 weeks ago, I think, maybe even last week. Krista Mesenbrink, I hope I say your name right, Krista, is a certified music therapist. And not only that, I suggest you go on YouTube and check out her YouTube channel, Dementia Success Path, because education, folks, is the key. And I highly recommend you subscribe to Krista's channel. I want to welcome you, Krista, to Chatting with Betsy.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I hope I said your last name okay.
Yeah, you did great.
Thank you. I just love what you're doing. And music therapy, I know, helps. I saw it with my husband when I played his favorite music, when he was anxious, and I played his favorite music. When he was dying, I played his favorite music. And I know it helps me, okay? I don't even have dementia, just to calm myself down. So I would like to ask you, what made you go into music therapy? What interested you to do that?
Sure. So most people don't know what music therapy is, and what it is that you're using music to help people solve problems in their life or reach goals. And usually the people that have music therapy are people that have failed out of all other traditional therapies, which is what led me to working with dementia folks. So I became a music therapist because I have been a musician, specifically a singer, all my life. And actually I became a singer because when I was very young, I had a very severe stutter. And I found that when I sang, I didn't stutter. And working with dementia folks, I found that they related to music in the same way I did, which it isn't about entertainment or distraction for them. It's connecting with who they are, and it's connecting with the outside world. And I definitely felt a kinship with them, which is why out of all the various populations I could have worked with, like autistic kids, traumatic brain injury, cancer patients, people like that, I chose dementia patients because I felt like we had that connection with music.
Yes, I see it, and I think it's just a wonderful therapy. And it was interesting that you said that you had a stutter, but when you sang, you didn't have it. And I heard Mel Tillis, who was a country singer, also had a stuttering problem, but he could sing, and that helped him. So I think that's pretty amazing. And Alzheimer's and other dementias really baffle me. Maybe you could explain this to me and to the listeners. I thought it was just incredible that my husband could remember a song to whistle the melody or to hum it. Can you explain that? Like when he couldn't even find the bathroom, but yet he could whistle and hum a melody that he hasn't heard.
Sure. Yeah, what's cool about music therapy is, and neuroscience also, is that there's a lot of research to answer that question. And the best that I've learned thus far is that there are multiple sections of our brain that control multiple different things in our body. And what's unique about music is that it requires virtually all the areas of your brain in order to understand it. Because there's a rhythmic aspect, there is a melodic aspect, like you were talking about with your husband, and there's usually a lyric aspect of it. So if you think about someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, it's almost like they're roadblocks on different parts of the brain. So let's just say someone in late-stage dementia has a roadblock on the part of their brain that controls language. what's unique about music is that the brain will find a different neural pathway in order to get that task accomplished. So if the language part's cut off, it will use the pathways that interpret melody and rhythm in order to get to the lyrics. So that's why you'll see someone who is totally nonverbal be able to sing an entire song. They're utilizing other parts of their brain in order to get that task done, and that's why it's very common to see people with dementia be able to engage and react to music even when they're on their deathbed, essentially, because you have to be brain dead in order to stop finding a way to engage in music, which is why it's such a popular group of people for my profession to work with.
That's a great field. I know some hospitals, or I should say some hospices, have people who come around and play a harp.
Yes. Yeah,
which must be very soothing.
Yeah, those aren't music therapists, but they definitely do a lot of good work, for sure. I think they work mostly with hospice, was my understanding.
Yes, the hospice that my husband was in, they did not have a harp player, but I have I've seen it on Facebook, and you see the faces of the people who have dementia. Is just incredible. One video I remember watching with music, the woman who was Jewish was singing to an African-American woman, "Jesus loves me." And
interesting.
The woman, yes, and the woman, she was looking at the woman holding her face, and the woman started to mouth the words as best to her ability. And it was just beautiful, the connection of the two of them. It's just, but that made me cry. Actually, I could just cry thinking about it. It was beautiful. And I've seen people use the MP3 players, the earphones that have dementia, and they're singing. Some people start singing, and you could see that they get more relaxed. I know I did this for my husband. I played music when he was in the bathroom to calm him down, to get him to take a shower, to help relax him when I wanted to brush his teeth or shave. I played his favorite music. What would you suggest?
Yeah, that's a great strategy. It depends on what stage your person's in, but I'd say probably more in the middle to late stages. Probably more middle, I'd say, with especially the activities of daily living. Yeah, I think playing music or even singing the activity that you're doing is a really good strategy to be able to get your loved one to do something a little bit easier. And I'd have to look through the studies to see if there is a study out there that puts a number and data to this, but my hypothesis of why it works so well is that when folks are in the middle to late stages, they start relating to their younger selves more. I believe it starts moving to when they're in their 20s, and then moves even further back to when they think of themselves as children. Even sometimes, obviously this isn't a hard, fast rule, but what music really does that no one really notices until you see a lot of these folks is that it helps you keep track of time. Whenever a song was popular or when you first liked a song, you automatically know when that happened. So especially if you're playing, let's just say your loved one is saying, "I want to go home, I want to see mom and dad," and in their mind they're 15 years old. Playing music that they would have listened to when they're 15 years old is probably going to calm them down. It will make them feel like, okay, I'm where I need to be. And saying, "Oh, mom and dad needs you to brush your teeth," or something like that, it could definitely be a good strategy to helping your loved one do some self-care, do some activities of daily living. So the reason why where I work at a psychiatric hospital for elderly people hire me is that when behaviors are so severe that they need to be hospitalized, they can't do traditional therapy. So you have to come up with alternative ways to help these folks do basic everyday living and to connect with them, sort of like what you're talking about with your story on the Jewish lady.
Right. Yeah, it was a song from this woman's youth that she remembered. The song Jesus Loves Me. And it was just a beautiful, interaction. I thought this was really incredible. Speaking of music, when my husband would hear the Wichita Lineman by Glenn Campbell, every time he heard it, and this was probably up to maybe 2 years ago, my husband would say, my dad liked Glenn Campbell, and my dad was an alcoholic.
Oh, wow.
Now, I'm telling you, you don't know what can come out of somebody that has dementia, what they can remember. And sometimes he would even say, my dad was a lineman, and his father was. He was a lineman for PSE&G here in New Jersey. So I just really recommend for the listeners, play the music that your loved one likes. Not what you, the caregiver, like, but what your loved one likes. And my dad, when he was in a facility, he was from the big band era. So my mom had his record player or CD player with the big bands. Benny Goodman, Tommy Dorsey, and, those Frank Sinatra, from that time. And he loved it. My father loved music. And sometimes Matt would even, dance. Do you, in your music therapy, I guess it depends on the ability of each person, do you also do dancing?
Yeah, we will sometimes. We'll do some music and movement or, some wheelchair dancing, because a lot of the folks that I see will be in wheelchairs if they have dementia. It's not a hard, fast rule, but a lot of them will. So absolutely, we'll do all kinds of stuff to get them active and connected with us, because, a lot of times if there's some stranger that's coming to tell you to take pills or change your clothes or something, if you're confused and you have no idea where you are, you're going to fight them pretty hard. But if I'm, the lady that danced with him to Glenn Campbell, then he's much more likely to say, okay, I trust the lady that danced with me to Glenn Campbell, than this stranger who's just randomly trying to do something to me. So it's a fabulous tool to be able to just overall make things easier. Yes,
and I even have witnessed that with the severely mentally disabled. I worked in a state institution. I was a nurse there, and they would some of them had a CD player, radio, and they loved music, and I would pretend to dance with this one client, and he loved it. He would laugh, and he'd smile. So, they say the music calms the savage beast. Not that anyone's a beast, or the savage soul, but you can see it. You can see that music can calm somebody, or it could rev them up, whatever reaction I guess you want. If somebody is feeling blue, depressed, you might want something lively, get them to clap their hands, maybe, move their feet, and just, to rev them up. What do you think about that, Krista?
Yeah, I do that every day with my clients at the psychiatric hospital, for sure, because at the end of the day, there's more to life than just being entertained and distracted, which is kind of unfortunate what a lot of people will think about music therapy or activity therapies in general. It's about getting somebody to participate in life in general still when they've lost the ability to make connections with people on their own or make decisions for themselves easily. in an organized fashion that isn't destructive. You need to have these activities with them in order to even just give them a meaningful life, because what's really tragic to me sometimes when I read some of the support groups is that there seems to be a loss of the person themselves, and it's no one's fault that this happens, because the behaviors, especially in the middle of the late stages, mostly middle, can be very challenging. I'm sure you saw that with your loved one.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you need that. You need music, or you need an activity that your loved one loves in order to connect with them and to even have them continue to experience their life in a meaningful way, and for you to continue to stay connected with them as a person and not just the disease. It's tough. I mean, the caregiver burnout's really, really hard. So I don't know. It's a difficult situation, but I believe that given the right tools, music, dancing, like you were talking about, it's very possible to find joy and meaning and life in this disease.
Yes. And you can see it in their face.
Oh, yeah.
When they hear something that they can reminisce, with and relate to. You just see it in their eyes. And it's a good feeling, to be able to play music and participate in helping someone. I want to say, feel alive again. It's lively. Even if it might be a calm song, to them, they might make them feel more lively, because you don't know where it's taken them in their mind. Krista, you work in a facility, but if somebody wanted a music therapist for their own individual loved one that's at home, do you go to people's homes?
I personally don't, but I know other music therapists that have private practices where they do that. I know my internship director, my personal mentor, Bobby Adler, she used to go to people's individual homes and do music therapy with folks. So I think the best way to find one in your area is to go to musictherapy.org. That's where the American Music Therapy Association website lives. And there's a registry, like there's a list of music therapists in different states. So you can be able to contact music therapists in your area. And if your loved one has Medicare or Medicaid, I guess just checking with your state to see how well your state will accept that. I know that's how I get paid, is through Medicare.
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, thanks for the information. I just thought about that in talking to you, that, I wonder if music therapists come to a person's home, if they do like a private practice.
Yeah.
If, if loved ones at home. That's a great thing to look into, listeners. If you check with your Medicare, Medicaid, check with your hospice. If your loved one's in a hospice program, ask if they provide music therapy. My mom always would say, Betsy, you don't know until you ask. It's either yes or no. So ask. You don't know until you ask. That's great information. Thank you, Krista. I'd like to know, Krista, how did you start? I know you just started your YouTube channel, which I think is fantastic. How did you think of that and start it?
Sure. Yeah, so I have spent the last several years of my career working with dementia folks and, gathering up all this information. It's interesting because there seems to be like really two camps of people who know a lot about dementia. The one camp is the individual caregiver, the family caregiver that really knows dementia on an individual level of their family member. And then there's doctors and social workers and people like that, psychologists for older people, folks like that, who know dementia from a very academic, book level, but they don't see it day to day. I think what I wanted to offer to the internet through my YouTube channel is information that I've learned as someone who's kind of in a weird middle camp between the two, wherein I'm not a doctor, where I have this crazy extensive encyclopedia knowledge of dementia, but at the same point in time, I'm not somebody that never sees dementia patients. And on the other hand, I've met thousands of dementia patients at this point with that are only there because they have very difficult behaviors. So I have a more macro level than your individual caregiver that really only just knows their individual loved ones. I've told people in my life that there's as many ways to have dementia as there are to be a person in general. So what I hope to offer is somebody that actually is in the trenches, like the day-to-day caregiver, that listens to people scream for hours and is there problem solving day after day after day, like the caregiver at home, but at the same point in time having a wider perspective than just one individual person, since I see so many of them. And I've seen so many of them over my career. So that's what I hope to offer folks is what the things that I've learned, not even just from myself, but even from my colleagues that are also there intervening with folks and seeing what's worked and what hasn't worked and what are the best things to try to calm folks down and to talk to them and to connect with them. I think that's the most important, because the longer you're able to keep that connection going, I think the less suffering there is for both the caregiver and the person with dementia. I mean, I'd imagine for the person with dementia, it's extremely lonely and isolating, and for the caregiver, it's just emotionally exhausting and feeling like you're going through loss after loss after loss. So anyways, that's what I am offering with my YouTube channel.
I think it's excellent. I wished that there was information like this, as I told you, for my mother-in-law, 18 years ago, when I did not know how to handle hallucinations, and I did not handle it well because I didn't know any better. And now there's so much information out there that I love the fact that you were presenting information, and it's helpful information. I just watched your video today about the hallucinations, accusing someone of stealing their wallet and, what to do. And I was thinking, delusions, yes. And I was thinking, I wish I knew this, 18 years ago, but I did handle my husband's hallucinations much better, only because, not because of a doctor, only because I was in groups and learned from other caregivers. Nothing against doctors, but they really are not in the trenches like a person like you who's a therapist, like other caregivers, because I feel that caregivers learn from other caregivers what to do in day-to-day situations, and therapists such as yourself and Tipa Snow that yes, that give great suggestions. And, this is what caregivers need. I mean, I would say to my husband, and, I just share my experience because I don't want people to make the same mistakes that I did. And, there's no perfect caregiver. But I would say to Matt, now what do you mean you can't see something? It's right in front of you. When I watched Tipa Snow's video about eyesight, I realized why he couldn't see what was in front of him. So then I didn't yell at him. Not that I yelled, but I would say, I'm getting patient. But I learned something, and then I wasn't impatient. And this is why I tell people, and I sound like a broken record, education, listeners. You need education and knowledge. And this is free. You have YouTube. I I guess, Krista, is there another way they could get your information if they don't have YouTube? I'm sure everybody probably does, but
yeah. I'm actually I gave you a link on all my other social medias. Next week, I'm launching my own Facebook group in order for the people that don't have YouTube to be able.
Oh, great.
To be able to share. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, my goal is for folks to be able to exchange knowledge on, like, the day-to-day, like, in the trenches, like, this behavior is happening. What do I do? What do I say? I mean, that's really what folks are looking to do, because I think we're all tired of the generic responses of divert, distract. It's like, okay, they're yelling at me right now. That's not working. That's
right.
not working,
yes.
Doc.
That's for sure. Yes, definitely. Someone told me when my husband was starting to see his relatives that passed on, she said, ask what they're wearing and what they're doing. But if I asked him that, my husband that, he would become agitated. So I couldn't ask him questions. But I didn't know that until I asked him. So you have to find what works for your loved one and for you as an individual, because it's not it's not a cookie cutter. It's individual. And that's the thing with dementia. There's a saying, when you met someone with dementia, you only met that one person because everybody is different. And I just, admire you for what you're doing. And folks, the information about Krista is going to be in the blog, so that's why you need to read the blog. Just a little plug to read the blog there, because it's got a lot of information there. Krista, is there anything else you would like people to know about you, music therapy, your new group that you're starting, YouTube channel? Tell us everything. Spill your guts.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, well, in the coming months, I'm working on a program that will help organize a lot of this information, because I'm sure it's all well and good to hear, oh, yeah, there's all this free information out there, but it's like, oh, it's so overwhelming. There's just so much. Like, is any of this even going to work for my loved one? Who even knows? So I'm working on my website that will help organize everything that I've learned, that I've seen in the trenches, in real life, work the best. Like what I've seen with not just obviously one person, like you were talking about how you just met that one person with dementia, but what's worked with the most amount of people with dementia, and alternatives to try when one particular thing doesn't work out, or one particular approach doesn't work out, what to try next, what to try third. So that's what's on the horizon for me, is a website to help organize this information a little bit more, which is why I called my channel, what I call my website, the Dementia Success Path, which is what I found to be the 4 pillars of being able to communicate and connect with your loved one the best, from what I've seen over years of being with thousands of them.
That is excellent. I just love it. That is great. Folks, when you watch Krista's YouTube channel, you can subscribe to it. And there's also, I heard you say you have a pamphlet at the end of the video. So when they watch the video, they can get your pamphlet?
Yeah. I'm actually still working on it right now. It's almost done. So what anybody who's interested in that can do is, I have an email list going, and once I get it done, I will email it out to you. It's another tool to get information, practical resources about dementia, a little bit more well organized, because again, the internet overall is just so overwhelming. And I mean, I'm sure as caregivers out there, and even as professionals like myself, you know, you're already overwhelmed with the amount of things you need to do in your day, like all the things you already have to do with your loved one or everything you have to do with work. So anyways, anything that I can do to help make this process easier and make all the years of, I would say, learning trial by fire a little bit more meaningful and to help people, I'm definitely wanting to do.
That is great. And I like the fact that you are a young person, because I'm middle-aged, considered a senior citizen now, that someone your age being an advocate, because you are an advocate, and I've been interviewing people who are advocates, and you are an advocate, and you had this love and desire to help and to educate people, and I just think that's wonderful. And when I did see I forgot where I saw you originally, but I saw your video, and I said, I had to have you on Chatting with Betsy. I just had to connect with you because I could tell by your video that you're very vivacious, and you do care, and you just had this vibe about you that I just connected to, and I said I have to have you on because this is a great month to have somebody like you on. This is, of course, June, and it is Brain and Alzheimer's Awareness Month. So, yes, and I just, admire that. What made you become such an advocate?
Yeah, so I guess as you mentioned before, I guess for those out there that are curious, I'm 29, which is very young, and the big scheme of life, I think just being exposed to 80-year-olds all the time, you understand, wow, you're just beginning. You don't know anything. What I noticed, especially getting more out there onto the internet, like anybody else, looking for people to relate to, because, I mean, quite frankly, how many freaking 20-somethings are in the trenches with dementia people? Like almost no one. So
that's true, yeah.
So I was looking to support groups to try to find some folks to relate to who understood the daily, the daily joys, but of course, the daily struggles that come with it. And what I noticed by getting out there online is that, my goodness, there are so many younger people out on the internet that are just caring for their parents, caring for their grandparents. People are getting diagnosed with forms of dementia younger and younger. So someone in their early 30s who maybe has their own children and is caring for their parent, like, there's so many of them out there. And I think that there needs to be as many different kinds of people out there in the dementia awareness community as there possibly can be, in order for everybody that's in this community to feel represented by somebody. And it seems, and a lot of the folks that I talk to that are around my age were saying, like, oh my God, thank you for posting this stuff, because it seems like everybody else is just so much older. Like, it's nice to actually have somebody to talk to about, dating. Like, a big concern for, like, millennial caregivers, especially if they're single, are, am I going to find love while I'm caregiving? And it just, that hits you, where it's just like, wow, that is a younger person problem that is smacking into the caregiver role here. So that's what inspired me to hop online and start making content, is just seeing folks my age. Because, when you're out working in the dementia field, you think, like, no one cares about hearing from this, like, young person about this. I was like, what do I know about life? Yes, but anyways, that's what got me out onto the internet.
That is, I applaud you, because you are absolutely right. There's going to be more and more millennials They're going to be caregivers because people, for some reason, are getting dementia younger. So if you have a 45-year-old, most likely their children could be in their early 20s or maybe late teenagers, depending how old they were when they had children. My son was 25 when my husband had been diagnosed. So he, was taken, he helped take care of his dad. And there's a lot of young people who are caregivers and they don't know where to go to, and they have their own set of situations. And that one might be an idea for you, Krista, to start a support group for
millennials. That's my plan, is to have a support group that anybody can join, and then a millennial specific one that talks about and focuses on just like millennial issues, like dating, like taking care of kids, and your parent or grandparent at the same time. I mean, some of the stories are just harrowing, and I feel like it's my duty as someone that isn't caregiving somebody at my house to be able to be a resource and be a help to folks that are, because, I mean, come on. I mean, your whole life when you're caregiving at home is about taking care of this person. It's like you don't have time to hunt this stuff down.
That's true. That's very true. And it's so, easy now, and it's, people like you who are making it easier for a caregiver, no matter what the age, to receive the information, to get the information. And this radio station, Pastoral Talk Radio, has a huge millennial audience. So I hope any millennials that are listening to the show will contact you, and especially they're a caregiver, for guidance, and suggestions. And, folks, I've been a caregiver, or I was a caregiver for a long time. I could tell you what works one day may not work the next. And it's just ever guessing. You become a very good detective and a very good actor. Well, my husband, when he would hallucinate that men were around. It was always big men. Sometimes they were hitting him in the head. And I just said to my son, Josh, you have to go with it. And we pretend to kick him out. And this is what we had to do. We just went with it. And I had warned Josh ahead of time that your father may start hallucinating. And I was right. And this is what you do. So, because sometimes people will argue. Oh, no, they're not. There's no people there. And you're just going to make the one with dementia more upset because you can't reason. You have to go with the flow. And these are things that, I didn't know. I really didn't. And that's why I'm so grateful for people like you and other people that have the information and they're sharing it, and people can get a hold of it. Thank you so much, Krista, for coming on Chatting with Betsy. I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your information, what you do, and really appreciate what you're doing on your YouTube channel. And good luck. You're going to be very successful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And what you're doing. You're welcome. Folks, if you missed any of this audio cast, I highly suggest you subscribe to Chatting with Betsy. You can hear me on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeart, Google, Apple, CastBox, and you can get my chats and you can listen. It's free to subscribe. And I want to encourage you all who are caregivers. This is Brain and Alzheimer's Awareness Month. Post your loved one on your page. Tell your stories. Tell your experiences. Don't let fear stop you. If you like to share your story, and if you're an advocate and you want to share about being an advocate, PM me. Come on Chatting with Betsy. where you can speak your truth without fear. We need to speak our truth. We need to take this disease, all dementias, out of the closet and into the spotlight where it belongs, because the time is now. We have to start showing our loved ones, and I really get very passionate about that because I get tired of people saying, oh, no, I can't do this, I can't do that. Yes, you can. You do it anyway. Face your fears and do it anyway. And if, people say, oh, I can't talk on the radio. Listen, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Nothing to do with bravery, believe me. And I just want to encourage people to speak up. And, a lot of times people can't. But if you don't want to speak up, post on your page something about Alzheimer's during this month or then every month, because as a caregiver, and I know we don't need a month. We live it every day, or I did live it every day, 24/7. Okay, this month is for the public to know, and the public won't know unless you as a caregiver or past caregiver show them your loved one's journey, because they need to see it. I want to thank everyone for listening. Be kind, be safe, and until I speak with you again, this is Betsy Wurzel, host of Chatting with Betsy at Passion World Talk Radio. God bless you. Bye-bye.